Good morning, everybody. Let's begin with a word of prayer. Heavenly Father, we offer our gratitude and praise for all your many blessings on us. Thank you for being with us in times of joy and sorrow. We thank you for the example of Jesus Christ, who taught us how to be your servant people, and for the Holy Spirit that guides us in how we can be your people here on earth. In Christ's name we pray. Amen. Got a special guest here today, but before I get to that, does anyone have an announcement about next week or anything else? Well, John, is it John's week or?
Yeah. Are you here? I didn't see you were here. About next week.
Our speaker next week is one of our own, Mac Irvin. He's done some amazing research on our former president, Dwight Eisenhower, and his relationship with Augusta National Golf Course. And that's fitting because it'll be right before the Masters. And he's going to tell us what that relationship is.
Thank you. Anyone else have an announcement this morning? If not, we'll get started. I'm going to defer to someone who knows Nancy better than I do and let him tell us about why he's proud of his wife and what she'll be talking about.
Thank you, Jim. This is a little bit more emotional for me than I had expected, but I'm going to do my best. It's my great pleasure to introduce my wife of 42 years, Nancy Reeves Mansfield. In that time, she's been an incredible wife, mother, grandmother, and she's had a stellar career in academics at Georgia State for over close to 50 years, I hate to admit, but I'm sure we'll get into that, but I'm sure many of you know Nancy as she has literally been at Trinity all of her life. I don't want to tell you exactly how long that is because I don't want to get in trouble, but Nancy hints that when she started Sunday school here, General Eisenhower was our president. So, we were married at Trinity by Allison Williams. Our children and grandchildren have been baptized here. Another early connection that Nancy has to Trinity is that she actually went to grammar school here. When the Trinity School was founded, the school met here for a number of years, and Nancy was here. After Trinity, Nancy went to the girls' school at Westminster, had a rich and rewarding experience there. She started her college career at Smith. She loved her time there, made many, many lifelong friends. But those long, cold winters in Northampton took their toll on Nancy. And so after 2 years, she yearned for the South. So she transferred to Chapel Hill, finished her college career there, graduated with honors. Her senior year, she applied to the Georgia Law School and was accepted into a class of 222 students, 45 of whom were women. Nancy worked hard and graduated as a member of the Law Review. Not wanting to practice law, she accepted a teaching position at Georgia Southern University in Statesboro as a legal studies professor. 2 years later, she was offered a similar position at Georgia State, where she stayed until her retirement in 2023. About 12 years ago, Nancy was asked by the university to start a women's leadership program, basically from scratch. So she created the curriculum, hired the faculty, raised the endowment, taught many of the classes. That program is now known as Women Occupational Hazard. It's now known as WomenLead. Program just celebrated its 10th anniversary. WomenLead has been wildly successful, one of the most popular programs on campus. Wonderful testament to Nancy, her talents and abilities, and a lasting legacy to her career. So let's let Nancy get up here and tell her story. It's really, really remarkable. Nancy.
Don't trip. Thank you, Larry, and good morning to the men of the church. It's fun to be here with so many old friends and new friends. My cousin David. I think in our family, I was the oldest of the grandchildren in the Quillian family, and David, we are the bookends. And so it's fitting that we would both be here this morning, and lots of friends online. I even saw my sister Carol there. So I'm glad to be here. My topic is Women Lead, a Career and a Calling. And I'm going to share with you my story. I've made part of it very personal. And also, of course, the creation of Women Lead at Georgia State University. First, I'll reflect on what shaped my career and the importance of Trinity and of my family. Second, I want to give some dimension to Georgia State, that large urban university in downtown Atlanta, where I spent 40 years. You can imagine the changes that I saw over that time. And I also believe that many of you probably have some connections to Georgia State, a degree from there, a family member who went there, and I think you'll be interested to hear some updates from the university. And third, I'll share about the Women Lead program, which I founded on the Georgia State campus, and with the help of many others, and that was in the year 2015. My hope this morning is that you hear in this conversation how the personal and the professional aligned in my career. I love the quote, and I think it's from Elena Kagan. To be doing every day what you enjoy is rare. Rarer still is to be doing what you were meant to do. That resonates with me, and that's when a career becomes a calling. So let's get started. I love this photograph of Trinity. I took a screenshot off the website and saw it as Larry and I walked in this morning. The church has been a part of my life for over 65 years, as Larry said. How did Trinity become our family church? When my mother and dad returned to Atlanta in 1956, after Dad's postgraduate medical fellowship in Boston, they had me and my sister Susan in tow. And I guess I would say my brother Walton in utero, because he, and many of you know Walton, he was born that fall in 1956. Of course, later came my sister Carol and my youngest brother Quillian, 5 children in 10 years. Mother and Dad settled in the Wildwood neighborhood nearby, and they learned, where's Bryce, that Allison Williams, who was a few years ahead of Dad at Boys High School, and Joe, who was my mom's classmate and friend at Agnes Scott, had been called to this new church on the hill. Trinity became our church home and very much our community. As I look around the room this morning, I can't help but remember family friendships and women and men who shaped my life here. Our lives have intersected in this sacred, holy space. Lavona and Overton Curry, Henry, were so much a part of that story. Bimby and John Conant, who many of you knew, Gay and Erskine Love, Cree and Fraser Durrett, Francis and Lou Young, Madeline and Howell Adams, Anita and Tom. And then as I saw John come in, I think of your parents who I loved and your sister Cal, who was my classmate, I think at Trinity School way back when. And finally, I'd mentioned Gwen Clegern, who many of you may know and remember. Gwen was a real spiritual giant here at Trinity. And at Westminster, she taught me senior English and was a wonderful inspiration and an influential mentor as I charted my career in education, and to so many others who followed in her footsteps. As I reflect back over the years at Trinity, I began to form an idea about the importance of making the world a better place, not on a large scale necessarily, but in all aspects of our lives. For me, that meant a commitment to something, many different things, but that commitment to go and do it often, and then you'll figure it out later. And that continues today. I think of Rebecca and her ministry among us. She preached a series of sermons last year that touched me from the familiar text in Micah. And what does the Lord require of you but to do justice and to love mercy and to walk humbly with your God? At Trinity, we try to live these words. So I'm working from two different sheets, but let's get started. In addition to Trinity, I just have to mention our family. And as we get older, I think we all realize that our time passes much more quickly, and we need to choose where to spend our time and our energy. And I know for me, I have much less of both. So when you choose what's really important, for me, it's family. They always keep me grounded. They're a lot of fun. And at the center of our family is Larry, who is really my North Star for those 42 years. And you'll see in the picture our son Ellis, his wife Amanda, and they have a little boy and a baby girl who was born February 11th, who's not in the picture. And then Margaret and her husband John and their 3 children. I believe that family and friends really help us to find our best selves. And I had a picture in here from our wedding, but I will simply look at Bill Fowler and say that this photograph would not have been possible without Bill and Winky Fowler, who introduced Larry and me 43 years ago. And here we are today, best of friends. So so I think that's really important. Okay, so I said that after a little bit of something personal, that I would try to, number 2, give some dimension to Georgia State University. And I'll start by asking, how many of you have some sort of connection to Georgia State? Look at all the hands up. And I bet that I saw Reynolds online, and I bet he has 2 hands up because I know that he also has a connection. So with that, you know that I started at Georgia State in 1981 when it was a commuter campus and retired, I guess it was January of 2023, and loved my career there. But I wanted to bring you sort of up to date. I don't know if any of you have had a chance to meet Brian Blake, who is the current president of Georgia State. He came in the summer of 2022. And brings tremendous vision and energy to the university. We've been blessed with great presidents. And what Brian and I had a chance to work on a few projects together as I finished my term on the Georgia State Foundation Board. But I'm really excited about what happened last fall. And that was the announcement you may have seen in the paper about a historic $80 million gift to Georgia State. That's a lot of money. And it's the largest single gift to the university. It was from the Woodruff Foundation, and it really is to transform our urban campus into Brian's vision of creating a true downtown college town, which is exciting. So they're going to call it the Blue Line. I couldn't get this video to work, so bear with me, and I'll show you some photographs about how this university is going to change downtown. And a lot of it is in anticipation of the World Cup. I know everybody here is interested in sports, and so I hope you're going to have some speakers that come to talk about the World Cup coming here in soccer. So from these drawings or renderings, this blue line that's going to go through downtown is 3.7 miles. And this is a view from Gilmer Street with a pedestrian streetscape that looks over a greenway and an expansion. Sort of there in the middle on the left is the university library. You can begin to get an idea that some of the older buildings are coming down and creating this almost like a quad and campus center to the university. Hurt Park is nearby. And look how they even put in a food truck. So I think for our students, you know, you think of it as a wasteland downtown, but I think they're going to really try to make it come alive. So this scene, any of you who have been in Rotary have probably driven down Edgewood more times than you would ever want to think about driving down Edgewood past the United Way building. And this picture shows that they're going to connect this Panther Quad I showed you to Woodruff Park. And there'll be Blue Line branding and fixing up the buildings along that corridor. And here's the picture of Woodruff Park. The last 8 years of my life, I was in a building right next to the park. I bet I walked across it 1,000,000 times during my career because I started my career on Broad Street. Well, that one, just really where I was there 20 years in the old CNS Bank building. Does anyone remember that building? And I think of, it really has the most beautiful public space in the city of Atlanta. The Schutzee banking lobby in that building, if you go downtown, is spectacular. And I would walk through it every day before going up to the 8th floor to my office. But here, if you look at Woodruff Park, it's really had some trouble, particularly with homeless issues in the city. But here there'll be new sidewalks, there'll be an elevated and realigned streetcar platform, and then pedestrian features that go across the park to that Broad Street area that's so beautiful. So it's exciting to think about these changes that are coming to Georgia State and look for them. It's all supposed to happen in the next 2 years. Ambitious. A little bit more about Georgia State. I think it's important to note that Georgia State is a public research university. It has a Carnegie classification of Research 1 university that is reserved for schools that are the top research institutions. Tech, Georgia, Emory are all R1 universities. So we're a mecca in Atlanta here for higher education. And what this means is it makes it really great for recruiting good faculty to come to Georgia State. And that makes a big difference, I think, in the success of the university. 52,000 students is still hard for me to even imagine. Look at the number of degrees, both undergraduate and graduate degrees. And most of our students come from the Atlanta and the Georgia area, but they come from every county in Georgia, every state in the nation, and 159 different countries, incredibly diverse. I do engagement interviews still for WomenLead, and the young woman who selected or who I did the interview with last week came from Tuscaloosa, Alabama. And I said, her mother works at the University of Alabama. And I said, why didn't you stay there? And she said, I wanted to come to the city. So you can see that we're drawing many students here to Georgia State. This figure about the economic impact of the university on the city of Atlanta says a $2.9 billion economic impact on the city. And I think about, y'all, what makes an economic impact? What does that mean if they have a $2.9 billion impact? What do you think what are they doing that does that for Atlanta? Hiring people, right? So spending money, employment, hiring, spending money, household earnings go up, constructing new buildings. I just showed you all this that's going to happen in downtown. So this adds value to our city that's coming from the university that has over $1 billion budget. So I bet a lot of the hands went up, had something to say about having been in the Robinson College of Business. And that's where I spent my time at Georgia State. I was hired to teach in the Department of Risk Management and Insurance. There were 8 of us who were lawyers, Many of you know John Fenton here at the church. He was on I met him first really through Georgia State. He served on the board of the Risk Management Foundation and brought his expertise to the university. So all within the Robinson College, which is the largest college at the university, 8,300 students. Over 6,000 of those are undergraduate students. And then I love this, that my dean shared this with me getting ready for this talk, but that more Georgia executives hold graduate degrees from Robinson than any other school nationwide. I think that's pretty exciting. All right, so back to a little bit of reflection. And I'm going to talk about both of these slides, putting them together. And on your right, I love this view of Georgia State where you're actually looking south and you can see the Georgia Pacific building. You can see the Twin Towers of the 191 building. And somewhere in that landscape is the law school that has really gained a great reputation here in the city. So in 1981, I joined the faculty on a tenure track position as a professor of legal studies. Y'all, I had never taken a business course in my life. My background is liberal arts. But I audited several courses very quickly and began to enjoy learning more about business. Of course, I was teaching law-related courses. There were 8 of us who taught those courses, so it's like a small firm. I was the first woman in my department and the first one who ever asked for a maternity leave. So I was very much a token for the first 8 years of my life there. For most of my life, I've had the simple joy of teaching, of trying to communicate to students why the law is important. It matters to keep us safe, to provide the backbone for business, and to protect our fundamental freedoms. I taught the legal environment of business course that was core for undergraduate and graduate students, a business law class, legal transactions and risk, honor seminars for students who were interested in going to law school called the legal process. And the course I love teaching, given my family background, was a graduate health law class in the MBA and Masters of Health Administration program. To think that I was at the same university or employer for 40 years is unusual. Today, our children will probably work for 12 different employers. I looked this up over the course of their lifetime. And for the Gen Zs, it will be 16 different employers over the course of their careers. So they need to be nimble and we need to prepare them for that kind of change and movement. Even though I was at the same university, I had a lot of opportunities within that world at Georgia State over 40 years. Research projects, new initiatives on campus, such as the introduction of first-year programs called, where you take a series of classes together in learning communities as freshmen to get acclimated to the university. I helped to build the honors program into the honors college. And for someone who did not do study abroad as an undergraduate, I had a chance to travel the world. Soon after Larry and I were married in 1985, there was a trip to Japan, Hong Kong, and China that was life-changing. I traveled to Dubai for a conference much later in my career. Trips to Europe, Australia, I took my son Ellis on that trip, and across the country to annual academy meetings. Overall, my professional life here at Georgia State has been marked by good fortune, a lot of hard work, and wonderful colleagues and mentors. During that time, I had a chance to build many connections and friends across the campus, which served me well when I launched WomenLead. So the other thing I wanted to share is that I have a picture of a book. I don't know if any of you have read it, called Don't Lose This Dream. It was published in 2020, and it's the inspiring story how this university, where I spent my career, blazed a trail for lower income and first-generation students and raised the retention and graduation rates tremendously at Georgia State. So there was this transformation that brought so much excitement to our campus. Mark Becker was president during that time. How did they do it? They reworked academic advising, hired lots of advisors. They used predictive analytics. That's a big word for me. Everybody's talking about analytics, and proactive interventions with students to make sure that they were in the same major. So if I was teaching, I would get notices of so-and-so, have they been coming to class? And then they would follow up to see, why this person wasn't coming to class. They used AI-enhanced chatbots to help with enrollment and with registration. Think about it. A young 18-year-old, first-generation student, trying to enroll for classes, trying to get in touch with the financial aid office. That office is open, from 8 to 5. Probably that student's working during the day. How do they get in touch with them to figure out what they need to enroll in September? So these chatbots would be open all night long. And it enhanced that ability of students to navigate and to move through their university experience. And I'll share a quick quote on, again, recommending the book. And this is from Beverly Tatum, who was, you all may remember, the president of Spelman College. She says, this book is a powerful story of institutional transformation that reminds us of these truths. Leadership matters. Institutional change is possible. Lack of money does not mean lack of talent. When barriers are removed, students thrive. Every educational leader in need of inspiration should read this book. And it's the story of what happened at Georgia State. All right. Keep pushing the wrong button. Two more quick slides about Georgia State. I've mentioned that it was a very diverse student body. And I often came home, and Larry and the kids will say this, and I said, I feel like I teach at the United Nations. You remember students from everywhere. These were smart kids that could compete, I think, all over the world. 70% of the students at Georgia State identify as minority students. This is incredible. 60% are Pell eligible, coming from families, many of them with less than $30,000 a year in income, and over 40% are first-generation students. This is a diverse student body with a unique opportunity to engage students typically underrepresented in higher education. And with that sort of high-tech, high-touch approach model, there was much student success with graduation and these students finding great jobs. We said that we're an R1 university with a lot of research and also the #1 public university for undergraduate teaching. Fantastic faculty at the university. And in the last 5, again and again, the top 5 most innovative institutions in the United States. And we now have an Institute for Entrepreneurship and Innovation that offers courses for students in innovation. So I've talked about me, talked a lot about Georgia State. Here's what you came to hear, right? About WomenLead. And why and when WomenLead was developed. And I heard a little bit of the talk before breakfast, but I hope as I go through the slides that you'll think about the women in your life that you love, your spouses, your sister, your daughters, your granddaughters, nieces, and how important education is for them and opportunities for success in the workplace. Growing up in sort of that second wave of feminism in the 70s, 1970s, early 70s, Larry said I was at Smith College. I mean, I had the idea somewhere that I wanted to do something. I really thought I wanted to be a social worker. And then with Gwen as a role model, I thought to do some teaching. And somehow it all came together when we had the idea for WomenLead. And at Georgia State, so there's this student success environment, and I was teaching mainly undergraduates. They were smart. These were folks who cared about school. They showed up. And I thought about the women in my class particularly, and the men, and they had fabulous values. They talked about their experiences, but their mothers may have been making the beds at the Marriott if they had a job. And I thought how different the conversations were for my students than those that Larry and I had with our children around the table as we talked about college, or as Daddy picked up the phone for me and would call somebody, Erskine, will you talk to Nancy? You know, that just networking and happened for us in our lives. And so we had this idea that we could create something for women at Georgia State University. So I'd had that idea, and the time came to act in 2014. An angel investor, an alum who was a first-generation student and had had a very successful finance career, she's a little bit older than I am, came to the university. She was passionate about a way to change the role of women in the workforce. In her words, quote, she wanted to level the playing field. A development officer knocked on my office door one day and said, Nancy, I know what you're interested in. Will you go and meet with her, with me? Will you go with me to meet with her? And in the back of my mind, I thought, what do I want to do next at Georgia State? And so we had dozens of meetings. My dean called a town hall meeting. 23, 30 people showed up to talk about what are the possibilities that we could do with this gift. The dean sort of tapped me to write a white paper. Our investor liked it. The president and the provost gave their support, and we were off and running. And critical to the formation of WomenLead and to this mission for our program was that it was grounded in strategic initiatives at the university around student success, and even more important for WomenLead, that notion of the college to career connection is exceedingly important at a place like Georgia State. How do I translate my work, even if it's waiting tables, and my courses to what I'm going to do next once I graduate? I believe that students from all backgrounds deserve the opportunity to achieve their full potential in their career and life. And we need to provide direct preparation. We were going to do that through signature experiences that I'm going to talk about in a minute, experiential learning. And then you have this pipeline of diverse, talented students who are going to take the course. They self-select into the class. They have the same profile as the slide I showed you. But we wanted students who had a 3.0 or better grade point average, that they were progressing toward graduation. You know, we just didn't want them to do it as an extra fluff course. If it's going to be, they'd run out of their Hope Scholarship to graduate on time. And then we wanted them to be very motivated. Am I doing okay on time, y'all? I'm okay? Oh, all right. So some things about WomenLead. I mentioned that my dream was to give students signature experiences in the community. Here we lived in Atlanta, this big city. How could they get to know leaders and community folks in this city that could impact them in their career decisions? How do we take advantage of the resources that are at our doorstep in this city? And a third component was I only wanted 25 students in a class. Now, over 300 take the course a semester, but 25 in a class because that was the model. Jim can appreciate this for the introductory English literature classes and English composition classes at Georgia State. 52,000 students, 25 in an English class. And I wanted that. We know the magic. It's like at a church. When you form a small group in a community, people get to know each other and it makes a difference. So true confession, this shows you what WomenLead is. It's a 3-credit, 1-semester class held at Georgia State. So if students are working 2 jobs, a co-curricular program, there are hundreds across the country. But co-curricular means what? No credit. And I knew that our students needed credit for taking a course as an elective. I started with a business section of the class. That first semester, I had no idea what I was doing in January 2015, and it's now grown to include 8 different areas. So there are faculty with expertise in each of these areas teaching a section during the semester. And every single course had these signature experiences as well as specific content. I was teaching business or law. I had a colleague who was teaching women in politics. You get the idea. It was infiltrated through their individual classes. So I told you I had never taught a leadership class in my life. So, here they'd come to me, now I'm launching this program. And I had the good fortune of meeting 2 alums from Georgia State who worked at the Coca-Cola Company, exceedingly talented. They worked in the talent development area. One of them was the global talent director traveling the world for Coke. And they had developed at Coca-Cola women's leadership programs at every level, sort of the beginning, mid-career, and how do you make the jump. And then with the support at the top, there was a program for executive women. And I remember Delia and Sharon looked at me and came out. They said, Nancy, you have it. You can do this. They shared all of their materials. They coached me. And with those resources and their support, I knew that I could do it. And it was really important to me that whatever we created and did, that it had to resonate with the business community in Atlanta. It couldn't just be, this is Nancy's idea. And so it was very helpful to have that support. And this first semester, so this would have been 10 years ago, we went to Coke headquarters. Y'all, my students had never set foot in a corporate headquarters before. I took them to Coke, to CNN, Truist, SunTrust, Truist invited, we walked up to their plaza. We went to Georgia Pacific. Each semester I did a different company. We went to Grady Hospital. I had students who were taking science courses. So, this was the students, their eyes, became like this to have that opportunities and panels of experts who worked in the company sharing their perspectives. What was amazing at this first visit at Coca-Cola, they had set up a panel. And again, here I am with my 25 students. And they gave a tremendous interactive panel with the students. And afterwards, every panelist shared that they too were first generation students. I mean, I had tears. The student, it was sort of, and I don't think it had been planned that way. So it gave them this encouragement, we can do it too. And then y'all will love this. They let them go into the Coca-Cola boardroom. And so they literally had a chance to take their seat at the table. So that's most of my students from that first class. Now, I've been back to Coca-Cola with students since then. They've totally renovated the executive suites, and the boardroom does not look like this anymore, but that's what it looked like 10 years ago before the renovations. And so I think that's pretty much an iconic picture. All right, Scott, we're going to see if this works. Where's Scott? There. So Karen Greer came to campus sort of midway through the WomenLead program and interviewed our students and interviewed me. And so I thought this would make it come alive. So we'll see. It's 2 minutes, so bear with me. I think I just...
Georgia State is working to close the gender gap through a unique program. It is teaching women how to lead in the workplace. Anchor Karen Greer has more on what makes this story so positively Georgia.
For Georgia State senior Andrea Benitez, having strong female role models is important.
For me, I haven't grown up with that many women, seeing that many women in these amazing, powerful roles. We've always just seen men, and movies and social media has always been men.
So for the last several weeks, she's been networking with some of Atlanta's top female powerhouses on what it takes to lead.
I actually got to be paired with somebody who inspired me to, reach for an executive level position. Because before I was like, well, I don't know, maybe just I'm okay with manager status. But she actually inspired me to be an executive.
We've had lots of opportunities.
Empowering Benitez and young women like her is the university's goal, says Nancy Mansfield, director of WomenLead.
I think there's a real national conversation around women and women in the workplace and interest in using female talent to its fullest capacity. We want to fill the pipeline with talented Georgia State graduates who are ready to be put on a trajectory for success over the course of their careers.
Despite leaning in, women still lag substantially behind men when it comes to holding leadership positions. Some statistics show women hold only 25% of executive and senior level positions in the country, and less than 5% are CEOs of Fortune 500 companies.
Yeah, I think we need to change that narrative.
To do that, WomenLead is equipping these students with leadership and strategy tools before they hit the workforce.
They're tracking to say, when they get that first job, give me more opportunities. I want exposure to this. They learn that they may raise their hand when an assignment comes along. And then as a result, that those promotions come their way or even lateral moves that would enhance their functional success.
The semester-long course features workshops and field trips and access to influential women at Fortune 500 companies across the country, including Atlanta-based Coca-Cola and UPS. Since its start in 2015, 600 students have completed the course.
The main thing that I think what this course is also trying to teach us is that in order for us to have a community where women are also leading and excelling, we as women also need to build each other up as well.
At a recent panel, these students heard firsthand from civic leaders about how they became top executives. Senior Amakesi says listening to their advice gives her confidence that she and her fellow classmates will be successful.
They're going to the top. I'm going to see them there.
Karen Greer, CBS 46 News.
It's fun for me to hear those student voices again. Okay, let's see. Scott, I need to go back here. I think I got it. Okay, here we go. Oh, well. We'll flip through. So we're talking.
Georgia State is.
Whoops, WomenLead. So here's the footprint for the program. It's changed. I couldn't update this PDF slide. So there, we still have, as you know, 40% first generation students, good students who are motivated. You know, when it was launched, we have engaged members in the community. The database, the Salesforce database, when I left, had 735 community leaders. Y'all, I got out my Rolodex, and then I told them, tell me who your friends are, as we began to just build excitement, and people wanted to be involved. About 300 students take the course annually in these sections of 25. It's a one-semester course. Lots of different majors sitting shoulder to shoulder. It is truly interdisciplinary, which is fun. Dr. Bill Cooper will tell you, as a historian, some of the most interesting conversations and research that arises today in academia is at the intersection of different areas. So it's not just your one route, but there could be neuroscience involves many different aspects. History draws on sociology, right, in different areas. So that's fun about the class. And we would have, instead of 1,600 alums, today there are over 2,000 women who have come through this program. So what has worked? Why has it been successful? As a teacher, and Leslie, who's online, would agree with me, it all has to do with curriculum and planning to get it right. And we knew from the beginning that we wanted a curriculum that built confidence, and that can also be thought of as ambition for these young women. And we wanted the same pillars of a curriculum across every section. So how do we do it? We want to build confidence in yourself, who you are, what you want to be. Confidence in the professional world of work. Have you chosen accounting? Have you chosen political science? What do you think you want to do? How do we build confidence in that area of expertise? And finally, and I think most important for leaders, is how do you build confidence in making a difference in your community and having an impact there? So that's the core curriculum. They're still using it since I retired. These same ideas when they build, and of course we make changes and it evolves, but it fits within those pillars. I mentioned there was a code word at Georgia State with student success is we need core signature experiences, getting out into the community, building the course. I did it around signature experiences, starting with a values and visioning class. I mean, you all know this from business. You've got to know what you believe in, why it's important. Engagement interviews, storytelling. We even added a design thinking workshop, which is used a lot in business today. And those continue. I put this up about the values and visioning first class. And for the past probably 6 or 7 years, Kathy Waller, who was the CFO at the Coca-Cola Company, the first woman CFO, the first woman of color CFO, comes to Georgia State every semester to meet with those 150 students at the beginning of the semester and tells and shares her story. She cares about it. She thinks it's important. And I felt, and everyone else does, that it is important for the students at Georgia State to see leaders who look like them so that they can understand that it is possible for them. And I had the experience as a freshman at Smith College to think and to dream where, if you can see it and think about your own kids, and then you can believe it, then it really is possible to be it. So this is an aspirational program. That's the part I think that's like a calling. In addition, we did something, I wondered if anybody here in HR ever heard of the HBDI, the Herman Brain Dominance Test. Well, I won't talk about it. It's incredibly exciting, and it builds really strong teams. Students work on teams in college, and donors have made it possible for us to allow our students to take and be trained in the Herman Brain every semester. A few more of the signature experiences. We've added financial literacy. If you can see the picture in the middle, Matilda Lambert, who serves on the advisory board for WomenLead, works at Chase here in Atlanta, and she comes and does a fabulous workshop for the students. Poster presentations, and then there's a lot of networking. And I'll pause and read a little bit more from my notes. You all get to network every Friday morning. It's important for our students to network and to build connections. And we want to introduce students to people who they would have never had access to. And that's what distinguishes WomenLead and is a central part or component of the course. We engage over 100 community volunteers every semester across all industries and professions to give their advice and their encouragement to students. And we do this power networking event. During COVID, we had to move online, but where students have 5 minutes to go from person to person. So over the course of an hour and a half, they may get to meet, well, the way it works, you have to pause in between, but maybe a half a dozen fabulous conversations. And community engagement is important. We know we can't teach them everything in class, so we get to do a lot outside of the classroom. And these in networking, they often keep up with the people that they have met. The first semester I taught, a woman sat down to do networking at MailChimp. This one was a CIS major, hadn't really thought about where she was going to work. After she completed her time with that networking and interview, the woman said, I want you to go 4 offices down the hall, and I want you to interview with our talent director about a job here at the company. So, the ripple effect and the change that can happen as a result of the course is amazing. Just have a couple more. Am I running out of time? So people are going to watch. Okay, Larry says, that's enough, Nancy. Okay, I got. Do I have 3 more minutes? Okay. So we read a book, and I would encourage all of you, this is the book we used when I was director. Melinda Gate, worldwide philanthropist, wrote a book called The Moment of Lift. It is fantastic. It's an urgent call to courage. She's worked all over the world with women, and she, in effect, says gender equity lifts everyone up. And the metaphor for her was her father was a NASA engineer. She's a Duke grad, Jim, so that's why I got to add that in. And she grew up in Texas, and they would sit in front of the black and white TV and watch the rockets lift off. And that was that moment of lift. And she talked about the excitement in her family. And that's her feeling about this moment of lift, of lifting up women in the global South primarily, but around the world. And talk about measuring the impact of WomenLead. We've done a study. If I'm going to get grants, I've got to have data. So you can see from looking at this that this is done over the course of the semester before and after. When they start, before they take WomenLead, 6.4 out of every 10 students felt confident. And what is it at the end of the semester? The proportion is up to 96%. I mean, I can't make this up. And then when you look at building confidence, you remember in my leadership skills, in my ability in my profession, and finally, in making an impact in the community. Again, tracking from the beginning to the end of the semester, political scientists has developed the study. It has approval from the university. It's remarkable, the impact. These are the student voices. This is, I'm very proud of, growing from one person to a huge faculty, teaching WomenLead courses. And I'll end with 2 comments. Larry's given me the eyeball. But a week ago, we celebrated the 10th anniversary of WomenLead. it was moving to go back to campus. I participated on a panel with the women who are in this photograph. President Blake and his wife were there, the provost, my dean, Rich Phillips. And I found this picture on the internet on LinkedIn. I don't know if any of you do LinkedIn. And a woman in the picture, Jeroma Duthie, who served on the panel, posted this. Last night, I had the incredible honor of celebrating the 10-year anniversary of WomenLead. This program has profoundly shaped my life, and sitting on a panel to share my journey was an unforgettable experience. At WomenLead, every woman's story matters. The founders, faculty, and volunteers pour their hearts into uplifting each participant, creating a community that empowers and inspires. Women's empowerment is an ongoing journey. Challenges will come, but we don't have to face them alone. Lean on your community and never stop pushing forward. Georgia State and WomenLead has changed my life, and I keep finding my way back, gratefully, always. What a tribute. I mean, I just read it on LinkedIn. I was in bed and I thought, wow. So maybe to think about building confidence and ambition in the lives of the women you love. And for those of us who are teachers, I'll close with a quote from Henry James. I'm going to change the pronoun. And I think it goes like this. A teacher affects eternity. She may never know where her impact ends. And I think for all of us, whether a teacher, building a business like Larry, helping clients, a physician like my brother, in finance like my cousin David, you really never know when you treat people with grace and with kindness and seeing the potential in them, you just get it back 1,000-fold. So I'll end with that. Do y'all have any questions? Thank you.
And as a testament to Nancy's influence and mentorship of leaders, just something I'd like to say is that one of my very best friends from law school joined Nancy on the faculty at Georgia State in the mid-90s. Nancy hired her, and she has had a fabulous career, is currently serving as the president of the University of Pittsburgh after serving as the president of the University of Minnesota. So Nancy does do a fabulous job of mentoring women and guiding them to positions of, greatly influential leadership positions.
Thank you.
Are you competing with Spelman?
Not so, it's hard to compete with Spelman with the legacy of an all-women's college like one I attended. I think that I would say that we collaborate at times, I applied for a grant and got to talk to the president of Spelman, and she was enormously helpful. There are programs that happen in the city where we come across Spelman and Agnes Scott students. The Committee of 200 came to Atlanta and we collaborated that time with Agnes Scott. But I don't think we're competing necessarily at all. I would say that we're trying to replicate what Spelman has done well for, 100 years. So I think there's great potential to collaborate more in the city.
Nancy, I'm remembering that the Seven Sisters and their friends around the country, one of their selling points in the 50s and before was that women had a chance to be leaders on campus. And there are fewer women's colleges now. I'm wondering if co-ed colleges have approached you about how this program is working.
That's a fabulous question. Yes, several have. How can we replicate this and share it across, the country? What we did do, and we didn't get it, we got to the second stage, we applied for a big grant from Pivotal Ventures, it was Melinda Gates and, the woman who was married to Jeff Bezos put together money. And our idea was to take the WomenLead really platform. And after COVID, we had all these digital recordings and opportunities, and share it within the university system of Georgia. And we had MOUs, memos of understanding, signed with Albany State and University of Georgia, I mean, across the state to really start there. We did not get the $10 million, but I do think that there's the possibility for those who come after, I mean, because we have the success to share and then to replicate it. And I think there's a lot of enthusiasm from communities to get involved and and help to mentor. And the hope of the future is that these college students find good jobs, know how to navigate the jobs, and contribute to our country and its success. And we need women. 60% of college graduates are women. I don't care where you go to school, 60% are women. So it's really important. It's a great question. Thank you.
Down there, you make me proud.
I didn't hear the question.
I was tenured at Georgia State.
You were. How many? What's at Georgia State?
I beg your pardon?
You were tenured. Oh,
Tenured, yes,
in which
in the faculty.
department?
in the real estate department.
In real estate.
But
Okay.
what I want to say is you make me proud.
Oh, thank
You
you.
make me proud.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, great. Larry, you don't have a question? He's lived it.
Any other questions? Nancy, thank you so much. You did a great job today.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay. Not there.